I'm truly so proud every time I get to introduce one of our students. Ernest is a student in our master's program, an Army veteran, and also a seasoned entrepreneur. I know you'll enjoy his enthusiasm. Please help me give a very warm welcome to Ernest here in the studio.
Thank you, Chancellor. Hi, everyone. Like the Chancellor said, I'm Ernest Chamblee. I am a graduate student here in the MBA program at UCCS, finishing my final year. I did start the program in the before times, so before the pandemic, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what I experienced and how UCCS helped me through that actual challenge. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. I'm originally born and partially raised in Queens, New York. I say partially because my parents did divorce when I was young. My mother joined the Army. My dad stayed in New York, so that led me to going to 4 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools as I was growing up. I do a year in New York, a year in Germany. I remember for about 7 years straight, my birthday wish was for my parents to get back together. Although that didn't happen, I got great experiences from that type of life and those experiences. I do have 4 little sisters after my mother remarried, and they're the reason why I truly focus on leading by example. And if I face adversity, they're usually my inspiration to make it through. With that being said, and knowing that I was the perpetual new kid going through school, I did my best to fit in, but I always had a void of community. And that was a common theme that we talked about tonight, was community. And that's what Colorado Springs and UCCS has given me. We also talked about resilience tonight, and I want to tell you a little bit about where mine comes from. So in September 11th, 2001, I was in 7th grade in New York City, and I watched the second plane crash into the towers. That night, my dad and some of his friends went into the city to provide support, medical support, transportation, things like that. I was obviously too young to help, and my dad wanted me to stay safe, but that very day, I committed to serving my country in some capacity. My mom knew about this commitment. She was 10 years in the Army at this time and made me promise never to enlist in the military. So I kept my word, and I commissioned as an Army intelligence officer after I graduated from college. What's really cool about this loophole that I found was my sophomore year, I was visiting my mother, and I was practicing drill and ceremony, or the movements that soldiers make in response to commands. And she laughed at me, very loudly laughed at me, and vividly remember her saying, "I will never salute you." She put in what's called a green and gold packet. She went to OCS, Officer Candidate School, got her associate's degree and commissioned as an officer herself. I'm still the first in my family to graduate from college, but my mother sure did give me a run for my money. She finished her degree only 2 months after I finished my undergraduate degree. So the motivation I have to inspire is at the family level, but also at the city level. I hadn't had a community that I can impact, just my family, my sisters, my mother, and my father. So when I was making the decision after my separation to pick a place to live, which I'd never done, 30 years of being told where I was going to live, I'd fallen in love with Colorado Springs. I was passing through on the way to Durango for franchise training. I had purchased a couple of Rocky Mountain chocolate factories. Unfortunately, my Rocky Mountain chocolate factories were in Virginia and Missouri, so Colorado was not in my immediate future. Long story short, like many retailers, smaller retailers at the time in Northern Virginia, I had to close my store. That means I had no community, no cash, and no confidence. But I did have the choice of where I wanted to go. So I remembered how much I loved Colorado Springs, the robust veteran community, the history of Colorado Springs, and the community mission, much of what we've heard about tonight. And for me, that affirmed it was the best decision I could have made. Now, I didn't come here alone. I came with my fiance. And like many of you in 2020, I had to delay something. We postponed our wedding, and we'll be getting married August of 2021, hopefully. With that being said, it gave me several perspectives of how the city, how the hospitals, how the university handled the pandemic. It was amazing to see the city, like Forrest said, go into upskilling our community. We're going through the Workforce Development Center and really training some of our citizens here. It was even more cool to see how UCCS took care of the graduates of 2020. A lot of things changed, and they were there to support. I hope the leadership knows that actually kept a lot of us going, and that's the reason why some of us are finishing this year, is because we saw that support come through. The transition to remote learning wasn't ideal, but UCCS did make it seamless, and for that I'm grateful. Even though we couldn't have snack nights at evening classes and things like that, we were able to continue our education, and I still felt a sense of community. That void was beginning to be filled. So with these experiences, I've always been on a personal mission to inspire generations by leading people to be purposeful and healthy. And in that calling, I've come to find out that our success is usually right on the other side of that challenge that we're facing today. And it's solely up to us if we decide to face that challenge, go through it or tiptoe around it. Sometimes we turn around. But what this community has taught me, has showed me, is that you're not going to go through it alone. If you decide to reach out and use resources like the GRIT program that the Chancellor talked about, Boots to Suits if you're a veteran student at UCCS, the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, if you're not a student or if you're not involved with the military community right now, has a WIOA program that's really taking care of our citizens here in the Colorado Springs area. So what that really showed me, and again affirmed why I was supposed to be here, is because the community turned around. They showed unparalleled resilience, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this community. As we discussed briefly, the GRIT program, if you feel like you can inspire someone, take the self-paced training, become a coach. If you feel like you need to borrow some resilience, and trust me, we all do sometimes, check out the UCCS GRIT website. The Chancellor talked about some of the amazing things they're doing. I am a GRIT coach myself, and I know that I get a benefit from reaching out and helping others. And so I guess in closing, what I'd like to give you is, if you make a commitment to get involved with this community, I can almost guarantee that the community is going to get involved with you and help you reach that success that you're looking for. So for Colorado Springs' 150th birthday, I charge you to get involved in our community and do the best you can. And remember, it's not always about how heavy the load is you're carrying. It's about how you carry it. And here in Colorado Springs, you don't have to carry it alone. Thank you.
Ernest, I often share with people that when we help one student who's a first-generation